You've heard about a bunch of productivity apps, but you can't realistically use all of the apps everyone keeps telling you about. I'm Salim, I'm a final year med student, and I've also done an undergrad and postgraduate degree. And over the years, I've experimented with a lot of different study and productivity apps to see which apps worked best together to help me become a more productive student and improve the productivity in my personal life. So I'll save you the time of finding the right apps and give you an unsponsored and honest opinion of the only 4 apps you need to cover everything in your student life and how to use them. So the first app is there to help you with learning at school or uni. And if I'm honest, the reality of education nowadays is that about 50% of what we learn consists of things we just have to memorize and know to pass our exams. Because at med school for me, a lot of it is memorizing guidelines of treatment pathways to follow for different conditions, which includes memorizing hundreds of drug names. But you might still think that we need to understand concepts, which is true. But how many times have you thought that you really understood something, but when you were tested on it a few weeks later, it wasn't clear in your mind anymore? Memorizing is what helps maintain this clarity in what you learn over a longer period of time, especially because it's a level of learning before understanding. So to understand, it helps to memorize. And the app I found best to help me do this at med school is Anki. It's a flashcard app that helped me memorize every detail I need to know from lectures at university so that I score well in my exams. Whenever I took notes at university, I transfer them into Anki after making some changes and make questions out of them to make these digital flashcards. Or if I found pre-made flashcard decks online, I'd just download it for free and study that instead. The reason this works well is because it has automated spaced repetition that you can adjust, which basically means you'd be seeing the same flashcard at progressively increasing intervals so that it counteracts the forgetting curve, helping the information from the flashcard to get stored into your long-term memory. Anki also has features to make going through specific flashcards easy. For example, if you have an exam covering a few specific topics, you can go through flashcards that you tagged under a certain topic to give yourself a quick refresh on the content. Memorizing doesn't get much faster than using this, and to save you more time, I've linked the adjusted spaced repetition intervals that I use that helped me memorize thousands of flashcards to pass my med school exams. But now there's 2 problems. The first is that even though Anki will have all of your topics from classes or lectures in one place, you know that a lot of the time, lecture slides alone don't always cover everything. Like at med school, we have learning objectives for things we need to know for the exams, but the lectures only cover about 70% of that. So we need to spend more time to cover what was left out. And the second problem is that making flashcard questions takes a while. And when you have a lot of lectures, the time spent making the flashcards adds up to a lot. So what helped me deal with those 2 problems to create a more complete study app system without having to spend days on reading things up was using ChatGPT, and I used it in a specific way. For example, when I had notes from lectures, instead of transferring them into Anki without any changes, I'd copy my notes into ChatGPT and ask it to make them into questions that I can put into Anki, saving me the time of thinking of questions to make. And when I had gaps in my notes for things that weren't too niche, I'd ask it to fill in those gaps, or give me notes on the learning objectives that I missed out. And you might think, how reliable is ChatGPT to do this? So it depends on what you use it for. I noticed that for things that are facts or fixed concepts, it's good. But for things that change, like treatment guidelines, always double check and ask it for a reference to be sure. More recently too, I found myself using ChatGPT as a search engine for when I need to ask it a very specific question. For example, if I want to understand the pathophysiology of something in simple language, it helps me understand much faster than me trying to Google an answer and click through a bunch of pages. So you can see that it's generally a good way to streamline your study routine so that you end up saving hours every week. So these 2 apps focused on learning efficiently, but a big part to being a successful student is having an organized life. I like doing a lot of different things, so it's important for me to stay on top of things without being overwhelmed. And to me, that also means having a simple system to organize myself, because if something is complicated, it's harder to stick to. And the app I've been using to easily organize the different parts of my life is Notion. I use Notion for quite a few different things, from scripting my videos to writing notes and tracking goals, but the main thing I use Notion for is to track my daily habits. The reason I do this is because essentially everything you do in your life is built from habits, whether that's going to the gym, checking your phone, or sleeping at a certain time at night. So to have an organized life, you want to have a visual representation of what your habits are and therefore what you're spending time on. Keeping track of these habits is easier on Notion because it's got the best interface compared with similar apps. And that makes it easy for me to compare my habits from one day to another so that I can be conscious of the bad habits to then avoid them. I can say with 100% confidence that just doing this is what fixed my sleep routine and stopped me from having snacks throughout the day. And I also said I use it to track my goals. So this will be tracking how much I'm meeting my weekly targets for gym, YouTube, studying, or piano. And again, having a simple interface where I can clearly see everything helps me compare the different weeks. And that makes it easy for me to reflect at the end of the week on why I might not be doing something as much as I could, or how I can maybe use my time better to do something more. To me, it's all about keeping it simple but still having everything I I need easily visible so that I can track the different parts of my life, and Notion has been the best for that. One thing I would say is that if you want to have more flexibility and options with plugins and easily offline access without needing internet, Obsidian is a really good alternative. But Notion isn't the best for giving immediate directions for the day, and if you want to be a productive student, you need clarity for each day in terms of what you'll be doing and when. And this is a problem a lot of people have, because I'm sure you've had points in the day where you'd be unsure of what to do, thinking if you should study this topic or that topic, or go to the gym now or maybe take a break. And those extra decisions of thinking about what to do is only slowing you down. So one thing that gives you the immediate direction for the day better than anything else is using a digital calendar. And there's a wrong way and a right way to using them. The wrong way would be using it to block out every single hour and every minute of your day, which would naturally overwhelm you if you've never used a calendar before. And the right way would be to phase your day into different sections, and also making sure to schedule in gaps between the tasks of the day so that you remember to take breaks away from work. A digital calendar works well for this because you can kind of estimate how much of a break you need after a given task, so that after you use up energy doing work, you'll restore some of that energy with a break before moving on to the next task. And filling out your calendar even just a day in advance saves you a surprising amount of time, especially because it avoids you having to make the last minute decision on what to get done in the day, which would naturally stress you out. My calendar has the time for when I go to the gym, when I study, when I work on YouTube, or even when I reply to people. And that helps me focus on those individual things so that I don't get distracted by something else. Because I know that whatever that other thing is, there'll be time set aside for it, which I'll get to when my calendar tells me it's time. Knowing which apps to use for a productive student life is going to save you a lot of time and effort. But even with the right digital system, there's a lot more that can be done to maximize your academic and personal growth whilst you're a student. I've spent the past 8 years at university, and I've realized that most of my growth and progress was only made in the last 3 years. And that was because of a few intentional changes I made. So in this video here, I'll talk about these changes so that you can also make real and consistent progress towards your academic and personal goals, and avoid the common mistakes students make. So click the video to learn more.